Mr. Speaker, we're more than 3 weeks into January, and yet Republican leadership in this chamber has failed to call a vote on a single piece of legislation to address the pressing needs of hardworking families. Nothing to ease the burden of grocery prices, nothing to lower the cost of prescription drugs, and nothing to make it easier for an American to buy a home. So what's the priority for the Republicans this week? A vote on H.R. 21, the so-called Born Alive Abortion Survivor Protection Act, a bill that will give politicians here in Washington the power to monitor women's pregnancies and criminalize doctors and nurses who provide life-saving care to women in need. I wish I was kidding. Now, over the next couple of days, we're going to hear Republicans get up here and use scare tactic after scare tactic, attempting to justify this vote. So let's set the record straight about what this legislation does. At first glance, its stated goal might sound reasonable: to provide a healthcare practitioner from failing to exercise the proper degree of care in the case of a child who survives an abortion or attempted abortion. Now that sounds logical on paper, but here's the reality. This situation almost never happens. When Texas passed a law requiring reporting on abortions resulting in live births, they reported 0 live births over 3 years. 0. The same was true in Oklahoma. So what is this bill actually targeting? As we dig into H.R. 21, it becomes clear that this legislation purposely distorts what abortion care really is. It sweeps up highly complex and deeply personal medical situations, including those where a mother learns that her life is in danger because her baby has a fatal abnormality and cannot survive outside the womb. Now imagine the agony of a mother, a woman who dreamed of holding her child, now forced to make the unthinkable decision to induce labor to save her own life. And as her baby is born in agonizing pain with just minutes or hours to live because no amount of medical intervention can save them, this bill seeks to make that horrifying situation even worse by overruling any decision by the mother and her doctor to provide compassionate, appropriate medical care. Instead, it threatens doctors and nurses with jail time, even if the only alternative is prolonging the pain, the suffering, and tragically, the inevitable death of the baby. Tell me, Mr. Speaker, how does that make sense? Why do Republican members of Congress insist they know what's better for a mother and her baby than she and her doctor do? This bill is not about protecting life. It's about pushing out blatant lies about women's health care, and it's about control. It's about extreme Republican politicians inserting themselves into the most personal, private, and heartbreaking decisions a family has to make. And the cost? Women's lives put at risk because some here would rather legislate ideology than acknowledge the complexity of real-life medical decisions. To my colleagues across the aisle, instead of advancing a dangerous, divisive bill that exploits women's health for political gain, let's focus on what Americans actually are asking us to do. Let's work to lower costs. Let's expand access to health care. Let's give families the tools they need to thrive. The American people sent us here to do that work together. I urge my colleagues to vote no on the GOP's Reproductive Health Care Surveillance Act, and I yield back the remainder of my time.